So, in this module 5, we have been discussing on structures, unions. We have seen what the structures are, what the unions are, what are the similarities and the differences among the two, what are the advantages and all. And now, as our last class of this module, we will be discussing on files. So, what the files are? So, these are the learning outcomes of the class. We will understand what the files are, then advantages of using the files. So, operations of the files, how to handle the files in a C, like opening, reading or writing to the file, along with some sample programs. So, all of us know that basically these files become building blocks of any operating system, whether it is a Windows or a Linux. They happen to be like virtual containers that store some data. So far we are using the variables in a C program, but we have observed that these variables can store the data only for time being during the execution. So, as soon as our program closes, on the termination of the program, the value will be lost, volatile like. Whereas, if at all we need the output or some information to be stored permanently on a disk, hard disk for further usage, it is better to use the files, right. So, they have their own advantage. So, what the files are? So, it is a discrete storage unit for a data in the form of a stream of bytes, which stores the data for further usage. So, we say that it is a durable because the data whatever file contains is a non-volatile data, it is stored in a memory. So, even if you put off the computer, the data will not be erased if you store it in a hard disk. So, it has a beginning of a file, starting end, and then end of a file, and in between sequence of bytes. So, the sequential of data in such files happens by a pointer which performs read write operations or deletions or insertions. So, pointer is used for accessing the data in a file. So, each file also will have a metadata, in the sense a data about a file, important data about a file. So, like what is the name of a file, who has or who is the author of a file, when it is created, at what time, what is the size, etc. So, you can see here, this is a sample content of a file which contains list of some numbers. So, it has list of some numbers and metadata is prefixed with this file. So, beginning of there is a file pointer by default which is marking to the beginning of a file, right, and as we can access the next value and then the further value, like this we can go on accessing each data in the file till the end. So, files has its own advantages, like whenever we are executing programs, and if that program needs some input, if at all some 3-4 samples inputs or 5-6 inputs are supposed to be given, fine, but if the input required for the execution of that program happens to be very large, then it becomes tougher for the user to feed in all the inputs. So, better to consider the file in such situation. And also during the testing phase of an application or a program and all, if it takes interactive input which happens to be a large, in that case it becomes tedious. So, considering the file will be a better option. Similarly, if the size of the program output is large and which will not fit onto a single window for the display, the user will not be happy to see that partial outcome at a time. So, we will not be able to, we will not have a control onto that output, so which is large enough. So, for that reason better to put that output into a separate file, so that you can see it next. Similarly, you may wish to store the output for the future analysis. So, such kind of a output which happens to be a larger and all, if you store it in a particular file, probably you can see that output whenever you require. Now, we can perform some operations on the files. So, usually we say file handling, how to handle the files in a C. Like whenever we are dealing with the files, we need to open a file first, then only some operations can be done on it. Something like we can read from the file, we can write some content onto the file, or we can append something into it. So, for all or any of these operations, initially we should see that the file must have been opened. So, once operations are done, you can close the file, right. One important thing that we come across here is we make use of the file star. This happens to be a structure. We are in need of a pointer of type file, where this will store the address of a particular file. So, in between the address of the file will be stored in a pointer data type with file star. So, this is defined in the C compiler. So, these are the operations on the files. It involves 3 steps basically. First step is we need to open a file, and then you perform any operation like reading, writing, appending, whatever we wish, and after that we can close it. So, now how to open a file? The first step. So, fopen is used to open a file. So, this is the command. So, when this fopen gets executed, it returns address to the structure of type file. So, that contains the information related to the file. So, if at all we are not able to open the file, then the fptr this fopen will return a null value if at all it fails. So, this is how some sample code is to open a file. So, we declare one pointer which will be holding the address of a file that is written through fopen. So, file star fptr, fptr is a pointer of type file. So, this is the file name that we are considering as an example, file2.dat. And how to use this fopen command? You see that fopen, the first argument will be file name, followed by the second argument w, which indicates the mode in which the file is to be opened. So, the first argument will be a name of a file, whether it is a text file or a .c file, whatever it might be, we have to define it. So, first argument is a file name, and the second argument is a mode in which the file is to be opened. As an example, I have added here a w, a write mode. So, when this fopen command is executed, it will return an address of this file name, where or which will be stored by the pointer fptr. Now, we will see whether the file is created or not, right. So, how do you check it? See the value of fptr. If fptr is equal to null, it means that the file is not opened. Error in file creation, do something means you may come out, or if you wish to do something else you can do it. So, if a null value is returned as an address, nothing is returned as a out of this f open, the value null will indicate that file is not created. So, I was telling about this second argument, different modes it represents. So, what are the different modes? This f open has basically 3 modes called as a R, which is used for reading from a file, the W, which is used to write contents to the file. But see that whenever you are writing a file, whatever the content was there previously will be overwritten, will be erased, and new content that you are adding will be written over it. So, similarly, we have another mode called as A, which is similar to the W mode only, which writes content to the file, but it appends. So, it keeps whatever is there into the particular file. If at all something is there, it retains it, and whatever the data we try to add will be appended at the end of a file. So, R, W, A, these are the basic 3 modes for reading, writing and appending data to a file. And whenever we are dealing with binary files, so we can open the binary file using RB, another mode RB, which is used to read a binary file. In the same way, WB represents writing to the binary file. So, these are modes for different modes available for opening the files. Similarly, I was telling here, maybe as an example, if the file does not open, is not created, it returns null, then what to do? We wish to come out most of the times. So, that next we try to create successfully. So, there we prefer to use exit operation. So, this exit function already you must have studied in your previous lectures. Okay. So, this is similar to the return function which we use in the main C program, right. So, on when you come across a return in a main function, it comes out of the program and returns back to the operating system. In the same way, whenever we are using, we have to come out of a function, we need to use exit, right. So, if you use this exit function in a function, so it will come out of the function, so that you can deal with whatever the error you encounter. So, as an example, this exit function is available as part of the stdlib header file. So, this exit 1 minus 1, this exit minus 1 is similar to, it is a function which takes out u from the program only. It is similar to the return function that we use in the main. So, here just to depict the usage of this exit, the same thing, right. So, here is a fopen command which takes a file name and W, the same previous one. If fptr is equal to null, I was telling that there is a failure in creating a file, do something. What to do? If you wish to come out, you can make use of this exit function, exit minus 1. So, this is how we can use the exit function command. Fine. So, after seeing how to open a file, we will go for how to write something into the file, writing to a file. So, fprint is a command, fprintf, which looks like a printf or sprintf only, but there is a slight difference, that the first argument of that function, fprintf function, happens to be a file pointer, fptr. So, this is the way how we can print to a file, right. So, I open file.dat in a write mode, and next I will check to see whether this file is opened or not, okay. And if at all it is opened successfully, then I will go for writing something into it using fprint command. So, fprintf takes fptr as a first command, first argument, and whatever you wish to write to a file, you can write it over here. As an example, hello world. So, this will write hello world to the file.dat. Similarly, the other operation, reading data from a file or reading file contents using fscanf. So, we can read from get other commands also. You can see that we are opening a file called as a input.dat in a read mode, fine. So, whenever you would like to write something, you have to use W, and whenever you are reading from a file, you have to use R mode. So, before reading, again check if the file is opened or not using this normal command. If fptr is equal to null, there is a error, right. Otherwise, you read it from the file input.dat. Okay. So, using the command fptr. So, again this is the first argument, and print the values of two variables x, y, right. So, as an example, we imagine that input.dat has a content of some values, two values, maybe 10 and 20, which is stored into that input.dat, right. So, let us see, yeah, 20 and 30 are the values written into this dat file. So, this input.dat contains only this much, right. On the execution of this fscanf, you will see that x takes a value 20 and y takes a value 30. So, space is a delimiter here. In the same way, if you wish to read the whole line, okay, from a file, we can make use of fgetS. We can make use of fgetS command in a similar way. So, file star ftr, we define a string or an array of characters called line, which is of size 1000. Next, you open the file using the fopen command and check whether the file is opened or not. Okay. So, if and read the contents, if at all it is open, you read the contents. How? Making use of maybe fgetS. So, this fgetS has three arguments, fptr, right. So, this takes three arguments. First argument is a string, right, array of some characters that we define over here. So, we define the maximum number of characters that can be read by this or that can be held by this line array, okay. And fptr is a pointer that starts reading from the first character, okay. So, it returns null if there is no data into it, otherwise it reads and the data can be, whatever the data is there in this array line can be printed. Okay. So, these are some of the operations as an example that I told you how to write or how to read data from the file. So, and then if we finish reading, writing or performing the operations that we wish, after that we can close a file using a command called fclose. So, this is the way that we open the file, we check whether it is opened or not, and we can write whatever we wish to write to the file, maybe using the fprintf. Once we finish up writing to the file, we can make use of the fclose fptr. Okay. So, this is the format, this is the way how we close the file, right. So, fopen used for opening, and this fprintf to access fptr or to print that data, and fclose is used to close a file, right. So, this is the simple discussion, the basic discussions on the files introductory part. With this introduction, I will consider some of the sample programs using the files. First sample program is write to the text file. We would like to write something to the file. So, this program takes a number from the user and stores in the file called as a program.text, right. Takes a number from the user and stores it into program.text. So, standard lib.h, because this is available file, this declaration can be supported by stdlib.h. Okay. I make use of the fopen command by giving a file name in a write mode. So, you can define a file name directly over here, or if at all you would like to create a particular file in a particular directory, you can specify the path over here. Okay. I have defined it to be that the program.text to be created in a C directory. Okay. Upon creation of this file, the address of that will be held by or will be pointed by a pointer fptr. So, next check whether the file is created or not. If ptr is equal to null, print error and come out of the program. Otherwise, if at all it is created successfully, you can write to a file. So, printf, enter the number, scanf, right. You took the value from the keyboard and then you add it or write it to the file using the fprintf command. How? Fprintf, fptr, write down that value number. Okay. So, then you close it. So, this is the way how we write something to the file called program.text. Okay. So, once you finish, you compile this program and run it, and you will see that a file called program.txt is created in the C directory with respect to this case. Okay. So, when you open the file, you see whatever the value you have entered, no, for this num, the value will be stored into the file program.text. Fine. Yeah. So, now we will go for another program where we would like to read from a text file now. In the previous case, we have written something to the file, here we will read from a file. So, this reads the integer present in the previous file, we will make use of the same program.txt. So, whatever was written there can be and printed onto the screen now, read and print it onto the screen. Okay. So, how do you do this? The same way, right, declare fptr, open a file, right, into the read mode now. Which file? Program.txt. I am opening it into a read mode using the command fopen, right, and check in the same command I have added, I am checking whether the file is opened or not. If this is equal to null, then there is an error and come out, right. Otherwise, if at all the program.txt is there, then you read the content out of that program.txt. How? Make use of fscanf. So, fscanf, fptr percent in num. So, it reads the value whatever is there in that file and prints it onto the screen using the normal printf function. Okay. So, close the pointer, you compile it and you will see that, right. If at all in the previous case program.txt was created with that value whatever was given by us, right. If at all it is successfully created, running this program will get you the integer that you had entered, whatever we had entered, no, whatever was there in the file program.txt will be displayed onto the monitor, right. Yeah. In the same way, this is another program, C program to read name and marks of n number of students and store them in a file. Read name and marks of n number of students and store them in a file, right. So, this is the declaration, right. You go through this. So, enter the number of students, how many, right, how many number of students you need, and then open a file. So, I am calling or I am opening student.txt file in a write mode, because we have to store the information of the students. So, open student.txt in a write mode, right, and see if at all it is created successfully, right. If at all it is created successfully, then for these number of students, for I is equal to 0 to num, you read the names and marks of all these students using printf and printf scanf commands, right. Read the values of names and marks, and then whatever you read from the whatever you type from the keyboard as a values for the names and marks of the students will be written to the file, right, using fptr command. The name and marks will be written over there, because the file is opened into a write mode. Okay. So, you do it for all n number of students, and the information of these n students will be stored or will be printed onto the file student.txt. Okay. Yeah. So, like this you go on doing many more programs, right. Here is another program to write all the members of an array of structures to a file using fwrite, right. Another simple program, you can just go through it. Okay. So, with these sample programs from my side, I will give you one simple task now, programming task. Okay. What you have to do, you create a file, a new file in a write mode, right, and write some content into it. Maybe as an example, C is a very nice programming language, I try my level best to understand it. So, this is the content that the file that you are creating should be should store, right. You do this and close it. So, this is the task, and you need to write a simple C program for creating, writing into it and closing, right. So, this is a task for you. Also, the same file you try to open it in a read mode and read the contents of the file and check whether whatever you had written in the previous program is readable or not. Okay? Fine. So, with this I would like to conclude the module 5, where we discussed in detail, particularly in detail about structures, and then we discuss the unions. So, how these, we have observed that these two are powerful tools in a C programming, as they help in organizing the data properly, in manipulation of the data, efficient manipulation or management of the data, right. And they have their own usages, right. So, they have been using we are using these in many use cases, many real time examples also we have seen where the structures and unions are used. Okay. And after that we spoke about the files, what the file is, okay, to store the information for longer duration, right. So, how to handle the files, what are the operations that can be done on a file, opening a file, how to close a file, what operations, how to do some operations like opening, closing and reading or writing to the file, all these things we have discussed. Thank you.